till about 3 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock, Craig Hannafin would
Okay,
be on. And I would like, if we finish before 4 o'clock,
mhm.
I'd like to do Dr. Messersmith in one full day in February, as opposed to starting her today and stopping.
All right. We'll
I'd
see.
be okay with that, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's fine. So James Summers,
Yes.
all right, would you just call him officially for the record and we'll get him on the.
I'd like to call defendant's witness, James Summers.
Would you swear the witness, please? Can you hear us, Mr. Summers?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go
Would
ahead.
you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you state your name, please?
James Summers,
Would you spell your last name, please?
Summers.
Mr. Summers, are you alone in the room?
I am.
Do you have any materials from this case in front of you?
No, I do not.
You may proceed, Attorney DeLuna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Summers. First, can you briefly state what your knowledge of this court case is?
My understanding is it's a dispute over easement rights.
And what is your current address?
1309 Union Street, North Marshfield, Massachusetts.
And is that part of the Rocky Reach subdivision?
Yes, it is.
And do you have any interest in any lots in the Rocky Reach subdivision?
No, I have no financial interest in the subdivision at all.
What is your occupation?
I'm a manager of the U.S. division for 2 technical companies.
And what are those 2 companies?
That's Usnomlich Incorporated and GL Optic.
Those you're going to have to spell.
Used is spelled J-U-S-T, Your Honor, space N-O-R-M-L-I-C-H-T.
Okay,
And GL Optic is capital G, capital L, and then a space optic, O-P-T-I-C.
oh, I see, okay.
And what was your previous employee?
I was self-employed prior to that. You mean previous immediate employer, or
Yes.
self-employed prior to that?
And do you have any degrees?
Yes, I do. I have a bachelor's degree in photo science and photography from the Rochester Institute of Technology and a master's degree in reprographic technology from the same institution.
And do you have any professional licenses or certifications?
In my industry, there really aren't any, but I do have a certification in light measurement technology from GL Optic.
And can you tell me how you are familiar with Rocky Reach Farm?
Yes, I originally got to know about the farm through Lisa Messersmith.
Is that Dr. Mesosmith?
Yes, sorry.
And how did you acquire the information from Dr. Mesosmith?
Dr. Messersmith discussed, she lived at the farm at the time, and discussed the history of the farm and its beginning when it became into the family and subsequent uses.
And do you have any farming experience?
Yes, quite a bit. I grew up on my grandfather's farm. He had a truck farm, I've farmed with my father at all the properties that he's owned over time. I've farmed on every property that I've owned. I have experience in heavy farm equipment, repair and maintenance. I've hayed 80 acres up in northern Vermont, helped with raising livestock, a number of other things.
And did you assist Dr. Messersmith in her farm operation?
Yes, beginning in January 2016, we started having rather detailed discussions about additional farming opportunities at Rocky Reach Farm, explored a number of different crops and possibilities for running businesses on the farm, investigated those, wrote business plans, did soil testing, and a number of other activities in preparation for that.
And did you draft any plans with respect to farming on Rocky Reach Farm?
Yes, I did.
And did you get assistance in drafting those plans from any agency?
Yes, we got assistance from the Massachusetts government in terms of evaluating high tunnel operations on the farm, recommendations for testing and crops, and feedback in the areas that we were planning.
And did you get any assistance from any national organizations?
No, not that I recall.
Do you recall any assistance from the NRCS?
Yes, and I'm not sure if that's a national organization or not, but they assisted us with soil testing in the high tunnel.
And what is NRCS?
DNR, what is DNR? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you about to ask that?
Yes, I was, Your Honor.
Go ahead, you ask it. That's fine.
What does NRCS stand for? If you know.
It's a soil organization. I don't remember all the acronyms all that well, but they're involved in agriculture and soil development.
And was there any recommendation from any of the agencies that you spoke with about green cropping?
Yes, in fact. So
Your
one of
Honor,
the things we
move to strike.
What's on what?
I
grounds?
don't have any problem with him answering that he got a recommendation, but what was said is hearsay.
Well, that's an interesting question, whether it's offered for the truth of the matter or a recommendation about soil practices is a recommendation. I don't think that's offered for the truth. Now, whether someone's going to tell me why green cropping is good or something, I'm not sure that Mr. Summers is. Well, we'll find out if he's qualified to tell me that. But I think he can tell me what was recommended to him. It's overruled.
I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Can I have it read back? I don't recall exactly what I said.
Did you receive any recommendation about green cropping?
Yes, we received written recommendations in terms of, well, once the soil testing was completed, there was discussion on ways to improve the soils, and one of those recommendations included green cropping.
Could you tell me what green cropping is?
Sure. It's the practice of growing crops on the soil for the purpose of amending it, improving it, and in a number of different ways. It can be increasing its organic composition. Principally, it's done to bind nitrogen into the soil and improve its nutrient value. And it also improves root structure and microbes in the soil.
And in your previous agricultural experience, had you ever practiced green cropping?
Yes.
You said earlier, you believe this matter relates to an easement issue. Is that correct?
Yes,
And to your understanding, is the easement over land owned by Dr. Messersmith?
yes.
Do you know where that easement is?
There are several easements over Dr. Messersmith's property. I believe the one in dispute is the one over the southern portion of Lot 6. That's her property.
And when did you first learn about that easement?
I first learned about it when looking at some plans of the property and a bit more detailed in a discussion with Barbara Lincoln.
And can you tell me approximately when that was?
That was December 2016, I believe.
And when did Barbara Messersmith die?
I believe it was,
Barbara Lincoln.
I'm sorry, Barbara Lincoln.
I believe it was July the following year. Might have been a bit earlier than that.
And can you tell me the circumstances whereby Barbara Lincoln told you about the easement?
Yes, we were in the house and she was recanting various history and stories about the farm, and had described a number of the different areas. And we were looking out the window and she was describing the southern portion of the property. As you know, it's got a kind of a pork chop shape. And she pointed out the window and described an area that the Hannafins had an easement over to reach the river, and also described a tree line to the south that she had planted to block noise and visual people passing on the southern portion of that lot.
Objection, move to strike.
Okay, what's the basis for that?
Hearsay.
Well, she's deceased, right? So,
Yeah.
Attorney DeLuna, you have to establish the two prongs of the Declaration of Deceased Person statute, the statutory reference for which I don't have in front of me, but evidence. But I do know the two requirements are that the statement was made in good faith, generally before any lawsuit ensued, and it was made on personal knowledge. So if you want to inquire on the witness about that,
Absolutely, Your Honor.
we'll make the finding, see if I can make the finding.
Thought I was doing that when I asked the circumstances of the conversation, but
Well, I mean,
no.
he's established she's deceased. I will find if she died in 2017, that was before this case arose. So the prong of good faith was established. So then we'll get to her personal knowledge. If you want to get into that a little more.
Thank you. When Barbara Lincoln was telling you about the history and certain facts of the property, were you in her house at the time?
Yes.
And did she have any references in front of her when she was discussing this with you?
No,
And was there any third party there at all?
no,
And did she refer to any documents when she had this discussion with you?
no,
And was she stating this as her personal knowledge or something that somebody told her?
Objection.
Overruled. It's the question.
she stated it as her personal knowledge. She seemed quite confident in her knowledge of her property, both with respect to her descriptions there and the detailed history of the land as well.
Did she tell you of any other
Your Honor,
easement?
can we be heard in sidebar, please?
Sure. All right, I'm going to find, even without the last question, I can find that the defendant has established that the statements of Barbara Lincoln that Mr. Summers testifying about were made in good faith and made in good faith and on personal knowledge. So they satisfy the declaration of deceased person statute and the objection is overruled. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did Barbara Lincoln also discuss with you other easements on the property?
No. I mentioned the one to the south and the one over the Hannafin. So those are the two that she discussed.
And did you ever walk the easement with Barbara Lincoln?
No,
Since your involvement with the farm, have you witnessed people using the common driveway?
yes, extensively.
Rocky Reach Road after it turns left on the top of the driveway?
So not the one off of Union Street, the one.
The
one
40-foot wide easement.
Yes, yes.
And have you observed people using the easement north of the tree line?
Yes,
And have you observed people using the easement south of the tree line?
no,
In your observation of individuals using the easement north of the tree line, can you explain when that was?
Actually several instances. So one was a meeting in the field after after the plaintiffs had mowed a path down the middle of the field. I was heading out to remove some trees that had fallen on the southern part of the easement area, the path, as I know it. And in removing those trees, encountered a meeting of those individuals, Dr. Messersmith and Craig Hannafin, out in the field. So I don't know if that constitutes use or not, but they were there at that time.
What's the approximate date on that?
That was October 6th. I remember the 2018, I believe it was. Remember that quite well.
And is that the first time that you saw people using the north side?
That is correct.
Did any other activity occur on that day on the north side of the easement?
Well, there was a path that was mowed through the middle of the field.
Is that a swath that was mowed?
Yes, a wide swath.
And how wide was that?
I'd say it was probably about 8 feet wide.
And is that the first time you saw a swath through the field?
Yes, prior to that, there was no trails, swaths, or paths of any kind through the field.
At that October 6th encounter where you witnessed the three plaintiffs using the easement, was there any discussion about the use of the easement?
Quite a bit, yes.
What was the nature of that discussion?
There was a discussion as to whether, well, first of all, there was a discussion of what the people were doing in the field having a meeting. That was one of the first points of discussion. Another point of discussion was the plaintiffs had brought up things that they wanted to do on the easement. Mr. Lentz mentioned he'd like to drive a Polaris.
Move to strike.
Objection. What's the objection?
Your Honor, this is getting into the very same materials that were in the excluded emails and the settlement discussion. If this is October 6th, I think we excluded all of the emails after September 25th, and we've had no
Yeah.
other testimony on this. And
I was wrong about that. Let's go to sidebar for a second, please. And Attorney DeLuna, if you want to make an offer of proof, we can go back into sidebar for that. I don't know. Because I know this is an important question for you, so I'm happy to put that on the record.
We'll move on here on.
Okay.
Mr. Summers, did Barbara Lincoln discuss any further? I'm sorry, strike that. Did Barbara Lincoln discuss with you issues about the easements any further than that first conversation?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, did Barbara Lincoln perform any services within this easement area?
Can you, what do you mean by services?
Did she cause any activity to occur on this area?
I know she kept up the fields extensively, and she discussed with me why she kept up with the fields even after it had stopped being hayed a long time ago.
And can you tell me when this discussion occurred?
Yeah, that was before the easement discussion and the general discussion about the farms and the fields. She had mentioned that she had the fields cut sometimes twice a year, sometimes once a year. The purpose of the cutting was to keep down growth so that the fields would be ready to return to agriculture, to improve the soil, et cetera. So yeah, we talked about the fields quite a bit, actually.
And was this before or after Dr. Messersmith was a trustee to the property?
When was Dr. Messersmith a trustee to the property?
I believe prior to 2014.
It would have been prior, let's see.
I believe the trust was created in 2005.
Yeah, I didn't know Barbara in 2005. I met her in 2016.
But the conversation about the field was in 2016.
Correct. And 2017.
Did Ms. Lincoln ask you any advice about planting that field?
No.
Have you performed any activities in the easement area north of the tree line?
Yes.
Past few years?
Yes.
And what activities did you perform?
Started initially with surveying, so walking the fields, inspecting the growth, inspecting the trees, inspecting the soil condition, looking at the boundaries. Subsequently went out and collected soil samples for testing, did some initial home testing of the soil samples, and then sent away a larger collection for professional soil sample testing as per the recommendations that we had. I assisted in liming, in cultivating, and seeding that area as well.
And when did you
When
line?
you say survey, you don't mean like a formal instrument survey. You mean just looking at it, right?
I did use instruments, Your Honor, but I'm not a professional surveyor, so I have laser levels and laser measuring equipment, and I use that to the best of my abilities to understand where those boundaries were, but I'm not a professional surveyor.
Okay, good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Counsel.
Your Honor.
You indicated that you purchased line, or you
Yes.
used line? About how much-
Purchase
You purchased it. How much lime did you purchase?
several tons.
And on whose recommendation did you make that purchase?
Based on the soil survey results, and based on my own knowledge as well.
And what year was that?
I don't recall when the purchase was made. It was sometime before we actually did the cultivating in the field. So I don't recall the exact date.
Can you recall the year?
It would have been 2018, I believe, either 2017 or 2018.
And can you recall when you had the soil testing done?
I don't remember that exact date either. I know we have the tests and they have dates on them, so.
And after you spread the lime, several tons of lime, can I ask how large the area was when you spread the lime on?
Objection. Ron, I didn't hear any testimony that the line was even spread.
Oh, he said he put it down. I heard it. He said he limed the property.
Can you describe where you spread the lime?
Yes, in what's being described as the overall easement boundaries, the easement area on the southern part of the field, and some of the other fields as well. But that was the field that we put the highest concentration in because that's the one that we wanted to bring out first.
Is that the field north of the tree line?
Yes, it's about 2 acres. You asked how big it was, about 2 acres.
Your Honor, I hate to do it, but I need to ask you for a sidebar.
Sure. You don't have to apologize for the sidebars.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay, go ahead, Attorney DeLuna.
Mr. Summers, did you ever line the south side of the tree line in the easement area?
No.
Why not?
It's not an area that I would consider to be part of the field. When you're cultivating a field, you want to have the most contiguous path that you can have for your crops and your equipment. And so I concentrated on the north side, but also my understanding was there was an easement path in that area, and I wasn't responsible, nor was I asked to maintain it.
Was there any discussions about growing crops south of the tree line?
Never.
And did you have any discussions with Dr. Messersmith about crops in the crops grown in the field north of the tree line within the
Yes.
eastern area?
We talked about a couple of different possibilities of what Dr. Messersmith and I were planning on growing.
And when did those discussions begin?
Initial discussions like January 2016 was when the first discussions began.
And what was the nature of that discussion?
The types of crops that could be grown, what we would need to do to the soil to improve it, to grow those specific types of crops, how they'd be harvested, what types of equipment would be required, what the market was for these, how we would sell them, distribute them, store them, process them. Pretty much all the things you discuss when you grow a crop and look at making it a commercial enterprise to make it a viable business.
And did you narrow down the commodities that you would like to farm?
One of them that we discussed extensively and started business planning, attending seminars and doing other activities to further that was the growing of commercial hemp.
Hemp, you said?
Hemp.
H-E-M-P, okay.
Pardon me, Your Honor?
H-E-M-P, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And did you seek out any education for this endeavor?
Yes. Attended seminars, did extensive online research, got the applications and determined what would be required to apply for licenses, number of activities like that. Looked at seed sources, etc., seed costs, different varieties.
Now, commercial hemp isn't marijuana, is it?
No, there's a very distinct difference.
And what's the distinct difference?
It has to do with the cannabinoid content. Commercial hemp, well, more than just the cannabinoid content, also has to do with the fiber and the structure of the plants, the way that they grow. Commercial hemp is intended for use in producing rope, silage, a number of other materials, CBD oils. Cannabis or cannabis sativa has an active THC component, and the licensing requirements to grow it and process are completely different. They're totally different strains. They're completely different crops and completely different requirements for growing them.
And did you purchase any equipment in order to further your endeavors?
Yes, an extensive list of equipment.
And can you give us a synopsis of the list of equipment?
Sure. The primary moving implement was New Holland TC29D 4-wheel drive 30 horsepower diesel tractor with front loader. Also purchased a finish mower, a brush hog, 6-foot rototiller, rakes, a rear blade plow, and a cultivator.
And can you, I think they're all self-explanatory except the last one. What is a cultivator?
A cultivator is a tool used to break up the soil in a certain pattern to loosen its topsoil structure, and is one of the implements you use for preparing the soil in certain ways when you're preparing to plant crops.
And did you ever plant a crop?
Yes,
And what crop did you plant?
we planted winter rye for the purposes of green manuring the field to improve its nitrogen content, soil structure, the other things I mentioned earlier in green manuring practices.
And did you do this upon any particular recommendation?
It was included in the soil recommendations for improving the soil. It was one of the green crops mentioned.
And were you able to plant the whole field?
Most of it. There's an area near the tree line where I didn't want to cultivate too close because it would damage the roots of the trees near the tree line. Also can damage the equipment as well. So there was a portion of that close to the tree line, the northern side of the tree line, that I did not cultivate. And there's an area near the cedar trees, which was previously damaged when the swath was mowed through it by the plaintiffs. And I specifically wanted to avoid damaging those old cedar trees.
Hold on, stop.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to strike the part about damaged by the plaintiffs.
Okay.
Continue. You can continue.
Yeah.
So this is area near the cedar trees you did not plant.
We did not cultivate or plant too close to the cedar trees to avoid damaging them.
I'm calling up an exhibit, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
The swath is, yeah. This is exhibit.
That's been admitted, right? Or has it?
Yes.
It's exhibit T, I believe.
Number 23.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Summers, there's a photograph of the area north of the tree line. Can you see that?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that photograph?
Yes.
And the swath that is cut, is that cut over the area that you had planted?
Yes.
Thank you. Take it down.
To be clear, not the entire area. It's a portion of the area.
A portion of the area. Okay. So is it safe to say that the vegetation was cut was in fact planted, in part planted by you?
I don't believe that the winter rye was planted at that time. I believe the winter rye was planted subsequent to that time.
And when was the winter rye planted?
That would have been October, I believe, of 2018, if I'm correct.
On the tractor.
It's either October or November. I believe it's October.
So,
This is Exhibit 17.
okay,
Mr. Summers, do you see that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell me what that photograph is of?
That's a photograph of me operating the tractor with the rototiller engaged in cultivating the field, and a picture of Dr. Messersmith seeding in the areas that I'd previously cultivated.
And does that show the full width of the easement area north of the tree line?
No, it does not. There's area in back of where the tractor is there to the right that you can't see. That's out of the frame of the photo.
Okay, approximately how much between the last swath that the rototiller took to the edge of the easement area?
The north side of that easement area.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 feet or something, 30 to 40 feet, somewhere in that range.
So would you say this is 1/3 of the field, half the field, a quarter of the field?
Between the northern and the southern boundaries of that area, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Yes.
I'd say it's right what we're seeing cultivated there, probably a little bit more than 1/3.
And did you finish cultivating in this area?
Yes, I did.
And was it winter rye that Dr. Messersmith was planting?
That's correct.
Did that germinate?
Yes, some of it.
And what was the consequence of that germination?
It produced some of what we were seeking to do. We did not get an opportunity to turn it back into the soil due to the restrictive orders that were placed.
Have you performed any other services on the easement areas that would constitute maintenance of the easement areas?
Yes.
Can you describe what you have performed?
Sure. Most of that activity, other than the farming activity related to the field, is in the areas where trees had come down. So when trees were blocking paths or obstructing field areas or things like that, I'd go out with a chainsaw and the tractor and chains and come-alongs and all the other logging equipment I have, and remove those fallen trees as they'd be a hazard.
And by the removal of those hazardous fallen trees, was that able to keep the easement path open?
Yeah, well, the path is, as I understood it, the southern area south of the tree line, that path. I think I mentioned previously there were some quite large down trees in that area, and that took quite a bit of time to remove those and open the path back up. So once those were removed, the path was accessible again.
And are you familiar with any government-approved plans on Dr. Messersmith's property?
Yes, there's a chapter 61A agricultural plan for her property.
And do you know who prepared that plan?
It's 61A or B. Sometimes I forget which no, but it's a forestry plan. Was prepared by Phil Benjamin.
And is Phil Benjamin a professional forester?
Yes, he is. He's licensed in the state of Massachusetts.
And have
We
you
know that
read
because he testified yesterday, so you don't have to ask him who Mr. Benjamin is.
and have you read that forest management plan?
Yes, I have.
And does that forest management plan address slash or other, the removal of other branches or material from the trees and or the fields?
Yes, it does.
And pursuant to that forest management plan, what are you supposed to do with the slash? First of all, could you tell us what slash is?
Action. You know, we had the forester who did the plan, Your Honor, and I don't know.
Well, we're going to limit this to what he does in response to the plan. But I'll sustain your objection to that extent, not to tell us what the plan is. But I do want to know what slash is. Mr. Summers.
So I proceed, Your Honor. Slash is the cuttings from branches. It's the material of down trees. It's brush. It's basically refuge of growth that has been cut.
All right. So your next question, Attorney Donovan.
Cut or broken?
Yes, the slash can be intentionally cut from trees or natural fall as well.
And what is the practice, the best practice to deal with slash?
Objection.
Sustained. I mean, I'm not sure. He's not here as a forestry expert. I mean,
No,
ask him what he does.
the plan tells him what to do. Okay, I'll ask him what he does. What do you do with that slash?
So throughout the farm property, the slash is often used for creating wildland habitat, for creating habitat for animals. So we use it in the treat areas to self-decompose, to amend and improve the soil where the trees grow, and to create habitat for wildlife.
And you were with us for a site visit, I believe, on Tuesday.
Yes.
And those slash piles that were pointed out during the viewing, are those typical of slash piles that you would prepare?
Yes. Actually, the slash piles we typically prepare would be significantly larger than that.
And have you prepared any slash piles from the top of the bank down to the river in the past 5 years?
In the easement area, the southern part of Lot 6 that we're discussing, no. In the northern areas from there, yes.
So from the slope to the river in the past 5 years, that's how long you've been associated with the farm? You have not created any slash piles
That's correct.
or disposed of any slash?
No, not in that area.
On the southern side of the tree line, have you pruned any trees?
No,
Have you cut any grass?
no,
Have you brush hogged?
No.
Um, Have the plaintiffs discussed with you any intentions of using the easement area to the river?
Objection.
Yeah.
I don't know, Attorney Galvin. I know might be part of what we've deemed settlement discussions. On the other hand, we heard extensive testimony about their intentions of what they want to do. So I think you can ask this. We'll see where it was. I might strike it, but let me hear it.
Have there been any discussions about motorized vehicles?
Yes.
And have there been any discussion about watercraft?
Yes.
And there have been any discussions about storing material on Dr. Messersmith's property?
Yes.
And have there been any discussions about having docks on the property?
Yes.
Objection. I'm trying to be patient, Your Honor, but I think this is leading.
I don't think it's leading. Because you could say no. Right?
Have there been any discussions about removal of the tree stand?
Yes. In fact, there was not just a discussion, there
Move to
was.
strike.
No. It was a yes or no question.
Okay.
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay. So Attorney Galvin, you can start with Mr. Summers. When we get to 3 o'clock, if you're not done, it probably won't
Okay.
be. We'll stop and get the other witness.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Summers. Mr. Summers, when these discussions about motorized vehicles, watercraft, and storing materials and tree removal or the tree stand removal were being discussed, that was at a time when people were trying to figure out solutions to the dispute here. Isn't that true?
I'm not sure what you mean by trying to figure out a solution. So
Well,
I
that those
think you have-
conversations occurred in the field with
No,
Ms.
no.
Messersmith and
Wait for the
you and
question.
Ms. Hannafin when people were discussing the potential uses of the easement. Wasn't that true?
one of the discussions occurred in the field. Another one of the discussions occurred with a separate group of parties at a different point in time in the field. And another discussion occurred at Panera Bread.
Right. When the parties were trying to resolve this dispute or disagreement between them. Isn't that true?
I can't say what the definition of trying to resolve a dispute is. That's beyond my legal knowledge.
Well,
Let's put it this way. These are discussions that happened on and after October 6, 2018, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you can move on.
sir, it's your testimony that you haven't placed any slash piles on the embankment leading down from the westerly end of the easement going down to the river since in the last 5 years. That's your testimony?
Yes, it is.
So all of the slash piles that Mr. DeLuna was pointing out during the site visit the other day are slash piles that were placed there by you and or Ms. Messersmith before this dispute arose?
I never placed any slash piles in that area.
Well, do you know who placed the slash piles on the embankment that were being pointed out by Mr. DeLuna when we walked out there the other day?
I do not.
Well, do you know whether it was Ms. Messersmith?
I don't know who placed them.
You've never asked Ms. Messersmith whether she placed those slash piles there?
I have not asked her that, no.
When did you begin living at that property on a full-time basis?
I believe that was, it's about 2.5 years ago
And where did you live before that?
at 16 Gannett Pasture Lane in Situate, Massachusetts.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with what I've been characterized as a forest management plan?
Yes,
You've seen that document?
I have.
And do you know how many tree stands there are on the Messersmith property, the 13 or so acres that comprise it?
I have, can you define a tree stand? Because there's a lot of trees on the property.
You don't know what a tree stand is?
I have my definition of a tree stand. May I use that?
Well, what is your definition of a tree stand?
My definition of a tree stand would be a group of trees, perhaps more than 3 or 4 feet wide, comprising an area more than 12 or 15 feet wide. That would be comprising a strand.
Do you know how many acres of Ms. Messersmith's land have tree stands on it the way you would define it?
No, not precisely.
Well, can you estimate by percentage how much of her land has
I
trees
guess
on it?
Maybe 40%, something like that, maybe 50%.
Right. And do you know what percentage of that 40% that the line of trees that's kind of at dispute here is comprised of?
No, I do not.
If I suggested to you that there are 10 different tree stands on this property, does that refresh your memory?
It would be somewhere in that area, I guess. Yeah. Some of them are contiguous, so it's a little hard to say whether there's separate strands or not. There's different species of trees. If you were to define a strand based on a specific species, there's probably, in that neighborhood of 10 or so.
And even if this, now I'm referring to the trees that exist today on the portion of the Messersmith property close to the McCarthy boundary line. I'm going to refer to that, that stand. If that stand didn't exist, Ms. Messersmith, you could certainly have a forestry management plan regarding the rest of the property. Isn't that true?
Objection. He's asking the witness to formulate an opinion and he's not offered as an expert witness.
We give a lot of testimony about a forest management plan that he's read.
Yeah, and I excluded his telling me what was in the plan. I honestly don't know what this is about, whether the plaintiffs could cut down those trees. I'm going to overrule it. You can answer that question, and then I think we get our 3 o'clock witness.
Oh, okay. I apologize, Your Honor. Could the question be restated?
Yeah,
Or do you know whether Mrs. Messersmith could still have her land in 61A without the trees that are in this area that's disputed?
No, I do not know the answer to that.
Right.
so you have a witness, a 3 o'clock witness, Attorney DeLuna? Is that right?
Yes. If we can find it, we're in good shape. Ah, she's here.
Okay, so you need to get this witness set up. Let's take 5 minutes. 5-minute recess. Mr. Summers will come back after this witness is done. But,
Thank you, Your Honor.
turn off my video. Ooh, excuse me. Okay, Attorney DeLuna, you have another witness?
Yes. On behalf of the defendant, I would like to call Craig Hannafin as a witness.
Okay.
I am here. I'm unable to start my video.
Oh, okay. Is Ms. Hannafin in your office or at home?
No, she's not.
Okay.
Ms. Hannafin, have you looked at the bottom left-hand corner of your
Nope, that's
screen?
okay. I'm getting the feed. The host is controlling it. There we go.
Oh,
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, thank you. You may swear the witness.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you state your name, please, and spell it?
Craig Hannafin,
Would you spell your name for the record, Ms. Hannafin?
CraigHannaf as in Frank, IN.
Ms. Hannafin, are you alone in the room you're sitting in?
I am.
Do you have any materials related to this case in front of you?
I do not.
Thank you. You may proceed, counsel.
Ms. Hannafin, could you state your residence?
1317 Union Street, North Marshfield.
And is that part of the Rocky Reach subdivision?
It is.
And do you own 1317 Union Street?
I do. My husband and I jointly.
And what is your husband's name?
Daniel Hannafin.
And when did you purchase the property?
October of 2007.
And can you tell me what your profession is?
I am retired.
Retired from what profession?
I worked on Wall Street in financial services.
And do you currently have any positions in any municipal boards?
I do.
And what municipal board is that?
I am the chair of the Town of Marshfield Conservation Commission.
Your Honor, could we be heard in sidebar?
Sure. Okay, Attorney DeLuna, you may continue.
And in the past, have you sat on any other regulatory boards?
No,
Have you been an officer of any other regulatory boards, not necessarily that of the municipality?
I am a board member of the North and South Rivers Watershed Association, but that is not a regulatory board.
Okay. And you're a board member now?
I am.
Did you have any previous titles?
With respect to that,
Yes.
Oh, well, Ms. Hannafin, you're frozen, so hopefully you come back on.
I hope that's not fear.
I don't think so. Oh, all right. Well, we will wait. Have I mentioned that I don't like Zoom trials?
This is Chris Pasquale. Our lights are flashing in Rocky Reach Farms, so I'm not sure if we're losing power or not.
Oh dear.
It happens a lot here, so hopefully that's not the case. I just want to let you know.
Okay. Well, Attorney Galvin and Attorney Riley just disappeared as well.
We have high winds going on right now.
Okay. Why don't we stand in recess for a minute, see, Attorney DeLuna, you can see if that's an issue. If it's a problem at the entire neighborhood, we might have to suspend the trial. So let's just come back with Mr. Summers or something. I don't know, but let's stand in recess until we all figure out what's happening.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, Craig's back.
Are we back?
You're back.
Have we heard from Attorney Galvin and Attorney Riley? They seem to have disappeared.
Oh, do you want me to call their office? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna, I'll do that.
All right, thank you. I'm going to stop my video.
Honorable Foster, can you hear me again? This is Chris.
Yes, Mr. Pasquale.
I just got a call from Bob Gavin, and they lost power down at his office, and they just got it back on. So he's without internet right now.
Oh. All right. Come on back on. Everyone who's here. I mean, Attorney DeLuna and Pam. So as you heard from Mr. Pasquale, I'm sorry, Mr. Pasquale reports that he got a call from Attorney Galvin, Attorney Riley, that his office lost power, and though the power's back on, the internet's down. So that means we can't do this. I know Ms. Hannafin's testifying now because of limits, but there's no way to go forward without the other attorney, obviously. So we can sort of stay here for some longer period to see if it comes on, but we might have to reschedule. And of course, I'll find other dates in parts of days if it would be more convenient. Oh, look, wait a minute. Attorney Riley, you're here.
Yeah, sorry, our power just went out, which we started our Wi-Fi server, but it looks to be working and Bob's signing on right now. Sorry about that.
All right, okay, all right, good. So we can keep going. Thank you for your patience, Ms. Hannafin. You're muted though.
Most recent. 2020, I believe we had.
All right, Attorney Galvin, you hear us?
Yeah, hold on a second. Are you able to see me? I had to move offices to a computer that's wireless, so.
Yeah, no, I can see you fine and hear you.
I apologize, John. The power went out and our internet went out, so.
Okay.
No, that's.
Now we're here. So Ms. Hannafin, would you unmute yourself, please? And Attorney DeLuna, you may continue.
I would like to call up Exhibit 11K. Ms. Hannafin, can you see a aerial photograph on the screen?
I can.
And do you recognize that aerial photograph?
I do.
And how do you recognize that aerial photograph?
It's an aerial of Dr. Messersmith's house, my house, and the McCarthy's to the south of me.
And can you see the cursor?
I can.
And whose house is that?
That is 1309, Dr. Messersmith's.
And do you see the cursor here?
I do.
And
That is
who,
the McCarthy's.
and do you see the cursor here?
I do.
And whose house is that?
That is my house.
Okay. From your house, there appears to be a swath cut across your yard. Is that correct?
It is.
And can you tell me how wide that swath is?
Probably 4 feet, roughly the width of the mower.
And what is that? What is the purpose of that swath?
Access through the field to the trees and down to the river.
And who owns the land from the trees down to the river?
That is Dr. Messersmith's property.
And you have a right to use that property?
My property has an easement through that property.
And what do you mean by an easement?
It is a deeded easement giving us access down the hill to the river.
And who maintains that easement?
I do.
And what do you do in order to maintain that easement?
Very little. There is a narrow path straight down the hill. I take care of poison ivy, brambles, but otherwise I don't touch anything.
Do you prune branches back?
If necessary.
And how high do you prune the branches back?
Well, I'm only 5'1", so if one is in my way, I will cut it, but I can't even remember having done that in a number of years.
And have you changed the topography from your yard to the river at all?
No.
Have you put steps in that area?
When we bought the property, there were some downed trees that were used in a step-like manner. Most of those have rotted and I have not replaced them.
And do you have a dock?
I do.
And was the dock there when you purchased the property?
It was
Who did you purchase the property from?
Holly Mahadi,
And how long ago was that?
2007.
Thank you. And do you know a woman by the name of Paige Railsback?
I do.
And how do you know Paige Railsback?
We met in a garden club that we are both members of.
Is she a former owner of your house?
She owned the house prior to Holly Mahadi and her husband, whom we purchased it from.
And did you ever discuss with Ms. Railsback an easement on Dr. Messersmith's property?
No.
Did Mrs. Railsback ever discuss with you the planting of trees on Barbara Lincoln's property?
She told me that when she lived there, she and Barbara planted the trees.
And how did this discussion come up?
I think it was in casual conversation. The McCarthy property has a tennis court and there was a lot of noisy activity, and part of planting the trees was as a buffer to that.
Are you home often now?
I am.
And do you have an opportunity to observe Dr. Messersmith's property throughout the year?
I do.
Can you tell me if you've ever seen anybody using the field north of the tree line?
I have never seen anyone there until this situation arose.
And why, can you give me an idea, or can you tell me when you saw people in the field?
The first time I saw people there was back in 2014, when the property currently owned by Mr. and Mrs. Lintz was on the market prior to their purchase of it. And a survey crew came and surveyed the easement.
And was there any other instance when you saw somebody on the field north of the tree line?
Subsequent to the survey, one morning, a gentleman on a tractor came and began mowing down towards the tree line.
And did that gentleman mow the whole tree line?
I think he made one pass all the way. I don't exactly recall.
And do you know who this gentleman was?
I believe he was the brother of the listing agent on the property now owned by the Lintzes.
And how long ago was that?
This was in 2014.
How much time do you spend outside?
A lot. I'm an avid gardener, and weather permitting, I am generally outdoors.
Every single day?
Not every single day, but pretty close.
5 days a week?
Yes.
Since you moved into the property, are you aware of paths that access the North River over Dr. Messersmith's property?
Other than the one on my easement, no.
Are you aware of an easement on the south side of the tree line?
I know that when the properties were subdivided, there were 2 easements put in place. One for my property and one for the 3 upland houses down the road.
And what is your source of that knowledge?
Barbara Lincoln.
And when did Barbara Lincoln tell you that?
Well, during the course of my knowing Barbara, which was a number of years, I understood from her that she wanted everyone to have river access.
And when you were having this conversation, was she referring to any documents?
No,
Did she have anyone with her?
no,
Did she sound confused?
not at all.
Did this conversation happen while you were walking?
Probably because I often met Barbara outdoors.
And was this information voluntarily given to you?
Yes,
At one point, you received a letter from Barbara Lincoln and Dr. Messersmith.
Objection.
Recall that letter?
Wait,
I
I'm sorry,
do.
Was there an objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay. What's the objection?
Leading, Your Honor.
Very leading, yes. Okay, sustained.
Can we call up the exhibit?
Your Honor, I
Well, you
think
can
that-
call up the exhibit, but I sustained the question. But it can call up the exhibit. Do you have another objection, Attorney Galvin?
Well, yeah, I mean, because I objected to the question, he sustained, and now he's going to show her the letter and ask her if he
Well-
did it. I mean, shouldn't she testify that she has a memory of a letter first?
I don't know. Maybe you show it to her and say, do you remember this? Have you seen this before? Happens a lot, doesn't it? Call up the exhibit.
I'm going to put a letter on the screen.
All right, hold on. This is from exhibit 22.
22, Your Honor.
And this is the July 29th. So this was, I designated this exhibit 22E. Go ahead.
See on the, can you show her the letter, read it slowly? Are you familiar with this letter at all? Ms.
I
Hannah?
am.
And can you go down to the bottom of the letter? And were you and your husband copied on this letter?
We were.
And did you receive this letter?
I did.
And what were the circumstances of your receipt of this letter?
That grew out of the survey and the mowing that took place while the house was listed by the Hasiotises. And when Lisa understood what was happening, she spoke to,
Objection.
I believe,
Right.
the agent.
Sustained.
Okay. And when you received this letter, at any time, did you tender it to another person?
I did.
And who was that other person?
I gave it to Mr. Lintz.
And when did you give it to Mr. Lintz?
I don't recall when I gave it to him.
Can you remember the circumstances that prompted you to deliver it to him?
Mr. Lintz had, had curiosity about the easement situation. And I do not remember the exact catalyst for this, but in conversation with him, I said, I have a letter that I believe clarifies things, and I will give it to you.
And did you give it to him?
I did.
Do you remember approximately when?
It was sometime probably in the summer of 2014. It might have been later than that. I truly do not recall.
And did he ask you for a copy?
Objection.
I think
Wait, I'm sorry. Sorry, Ms. Hannafin. What's the objection?
It's
Objection?
just leading.
No. It's overruled. Go ahead. Did he ask you for a copy?
I do not recall if he asked me for a copy or if I simply offered one in the hopes to make the situation more clear to him.
And when you say to make the situation more clear to him, can you remember the origin of your conversation that prompted you to deliver this letter to him?
I think the question for Mr. Lintz was, where is the easement? Where may I access the easement?
And you provided this letter to him to answer that question.
I did.
I have no further questions of this witness.
Okay. You want the exhibit taken down, Attorney Galvin? Oh, I guess it is taken down.
Yes. Because I had to move offices to make sure I had an internet connection, I might be just a brief delayed, but could I, Tony, could you please put up former Exhibit A, which is an email from Ms. Hannafin to Mr. Lintz? Could you put that up?
It's now Exhibit 24.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hannafin.
Good afternoon, Attorney Galvin.
Ms. Hannafin, I'm showing you what's previously been marked as exhibit number 24. Do you see that?
I do.
And a moment ago, when Attorney DeLuna asked you about when you provided a letter from 2014 to Mr. Lintz, you indicated you thought it was in 2014, but it could be later. Is that a fair recitation of what you testified to?
It is.
Do you see this email here, exhibit number 24?
I see it.
And do you see the date, Monday, May 21st, 2018 at 8:04 a.m.?
I do see that.
And do you recall that email?
I wouldn't say I would have total recall of it, but clearly I see it in front of me, and I remember, as I said previously, that I was going to give Jim a copy of the letter.
Okay. But my question is, you weren't certain about the date. And does seeing this email refresh your memory as to when you provided the letter to Mr. Lentz?
It does.
Okay, and is it fair to say that you would have provided it to him on or after May 21st, 2018?
That's correct.
Okay, and do you know whether that was before or after Mr. Lentz bought his house?
I am quite sure that was after, because I only met Mr. Lentz after he purchased the property.
Okay. If I suggested to you that the Lentzes purchased their property in 2015, does that give you any type of memory as to when the Lentzes purchased their home?
If you say it was 2015, clearly that is correct. I knew that this had to be after the summer of 2014, because that's when I received the letter myself.
Okay. Now, Ms. Hannafin, you testified that you're there at your home because you're retired and you enjoy
Can you take the
gardening.
exhibit down, or do you need it?
Yes, I'm all set with that. Thank you. You testified that you're at home a lot and because you're retired and you enjoy gardening, and is that generally fair of what you indicated?
It is.
And during the time that you've been there, you haven't noticed anybody using the side of the Messersmith property abutting your property where there's an open field before the tree line. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay. Do you vacation, Ms. Hannafin, on an annual basis?
I do.
And is there a time of year that you vacation?
February and March.
Okay. And when you vacation, do you vacation away from your property here in Marshfield on Union Street?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little. Could you say that again?
Yes. Do you vacation away from your home here in Union Street in Marshfield?
I do.
And where do you vacation?
In the British Virgin Islands.
Okay. And do you, from time to time, also visit other people and spend days and nights away during the remainder of the year?
I used to.
Okay. Up until some period of time?
Up until March of 2020.
Okay. And how often would you do that type of visiting and being away from your home on Union Street?
I would say infrequently.
Okay. If I was to ask you to quantify it, what infrequently meant, are you able to give me any better information about that? No, I'm talking about the time frame.
Perhaps. I mean, I can take a guess and say 6 to 7 times a year for a long weekend, perhaps.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, were you ever provided any photographs when you purchased your property of the Rocky Reach Farm?
I have some aerial photos that were taken possibly as far back as the 1980s.
Okay. Mr. Riley, can you put up photograph 11A? Ms. Hannafin, have you seen a photograph that's marked in this case as Exhibit 11A before?
I don't think I've seen this exact photo.
Okay. This is a photograph from March of 1995. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. Do you recognize, even though you haven't seen this photograph before, any of the properties that are depicted in this photo?
I do.
And do you recognize the Messersmith property?
I do.
And I understand it's not delineated with boundary lines and things like that, but is that the house at 1309 Union Street with the red and black mark in the in dot?
It is.
Okay, and to the right and lower right-hand part of the photograph, do you recognize the home that you now own, the home and property you now own?
I do.
Okay, and is that kind of in the middle of the triangle with what appears to be two structures and a pool?
It is.
Okay, so when you purchased your property, is it fair to say there was a pool at the property?
There was.
Okay. Do you see the rear yard area of your property? And by that, I mean the area behind your home headed in the direction of the North River?
I do.
And are you able to make out a path, even in this photograph from 1995, leading from the rear area of your home to the North River?
I can see that.
Okay. When you bought your home, was there an existing path through the rear yard area of your property down to the tree stand and down to the embankment to the North River?
There was.
And did you understand that to exist at the time that Ms. Railsback owned the property?
Yes.
And do you see 4 what appears to be trees in the area of where that path was located?
I see them.
Do you remember, do you, from your knowledge of the property today, do those 4 trees still exist?
They do.
Are those what we call cedar trees?
They are.
Okay, and do you know whose property they're located on?
The two to the left nearest to the cursor are on Dr. Messersmith's property. The other 2, well, certainly the one to the upper, that is on my property. And the other one, I'm not even sure the other one is still there.
Okay.
And
Now-
that would be very close to the property line. I couldn't say for sure
Okay,
whose it is.
all right. Are those the trees that Ms. Railsback told you she planted?
No,
Objection.
It's the objection.
I don't think Mrs. Railsback told her she planted any specific trees.
I don't think she did. Overruled.
Did you answer the question, Ms. Hannafin? You can
She
answer.
said no.
Okay. Do you see below the 2 trees that you've just identified as being on the Messersmith property, there's another 5 trees?
I see those.
And have you ever seen, you've not seen this photograph before, right?
Right.
Are you aware that Paige Railsback testified that these are the 5 trees that she planted?
I am not aware of that.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
I will draw it anyways, yes.
Okay. So not aware of that. Okay.
Okay. Are these the 5 trees that Paige Railsback told you she planted?
I have no idea. I don't know. I only knew that they planted in general trees.
Do you know how many trees were planted that you were told were planted?
I was never told a number.
But you were told that these trees were planted in order to buffer the McCarthy tennis court from the Railsback property?
That's what I was told.
In fact, if you were standing in what is your backyard and you're looking in the direction of the tennis court, those 5 trees appear to be right in that line. Isn't that true?
It would seem to be.
Mr. Riley, do you have exhibit 11A. It would, not 11A, chalk A. We haven't admitted that. Can you display that?
<clears throat> Sorry, which one is chalk A?
It's
I
the
have it. If you'd like
Yeah.
me to put it up, I can do
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Okay,
assessor's map.
Oh, okay.
got it?
Yeah, can you just blow that up, please?
Mhm.
Yeah, just a little bit more. One more time, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Ms. Hannafin, I'm going to represent to you that this is a portion of Town of Marshfield assessor's map, okay? Oh. And
Yes,
do you recognize that area?
I do.
And do you recognize the configuration of what is a parcel of land with surrounded by a yellow line?
I do.
And do you recognize that to be the Messersmith property?
I do.
And I know it's shaded, but are you able to observe the Messersmith house located in the upper portion of the yellow area?
I can see that.
Okay. And you would agree behind where the Messersmith house is facing in the direction of the North River, there's an extensive field there.
Yes,
And then ultimately you get to a tree line that's down along the bank of the North River.
I see that. Yes,
Okay. And then there's and that's a rectangular shape. And then there's a small, narrower connection to a long length of the lot. Do you see that, which is behind your property?
yes, I do.
That, would you agree with me? That's all treed?
From Union Street into the lane, and then some is all treed. But as you approach the river parallel to the McCarthy's property, there is some open space there between the tree line and the 100-year-old junipers.
Do you mean cedars?
Cedars, yeah, they're junipers.
I'm focusing on the leg of the Messersmith property that runs along the North River behind your house in particular, where the easement.
Oh, okay, yes, that is
That-
treed.
That's entirely treed. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And there's an embankment there that drops down a number of feet down to the level of the river. Isn't that true?
Yes,
And that's where you indicated you have a path that goes down to the river, right?
yes.
Can you estimate the number of feet that it goes down from the level of the field all the way down to the level of the river?
I would guess it's about 150 feet.
Okay, how about the drop in elevation? Are you able to estimate that? How much higher is the field at the boundary line of your property than the level of the river?
It's steep, but it's certainly passable on foot.
Okay. Now, do you know the McCarthy family?
I do.
And they're your neighbors. I
Can you
guess
take
just
that
for this-
down? you need
one more,
this?
one more question.
Oh, you do? Okay, go ahead.
Yep. One more question here. They live on the opposite side of the leg of the Messersmith land that's between your property and the, strike that. They live on the opposite side of the Messersmith property that's passes between your house and their house. Is that correct?
Yes.
I asked that correctly, but, okay. And do you know a person by the name of Chris Little?
I do.
Does Chris Little work for you?
He does.
Does he still work for you today?
Yes, he does.
And what does he do for you today?
He mows the field behind my house, and sometimes he mows my front field out on Union Street, although that is currently being farmed.
Okay, there's a portion of your property that actually has an open field down near Union Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if in this assessor's map, it's located just to the north of the leg that connects to Union Street. There's a
That's right.
field there? Okay. And
Yes.
you own that, right?
I don't own all of it. I own a portion of it.
Okay. All right. And you're not haying your field, are you?
No,
And you're not applying any lime or other soil nutrients, are you?
there are no inputs, whatever. It is simply mown, usually twice a year.
Okay. Are you aware that Mr. Little used to cut the Messersmith property in its fields?
Yes,
Are you aware that he no longer works for the Messersmiths?
I am.
Okay. Do you know why?
I believe there was a falling out between Dr. Messersmith and Mr. Little.
And do you know whether it had to do anything with an affidavit that he provided in this case?
I know that was part of it, but I think even prior to that, there was some misunderstanding about some tree cleanup or whatever. I'm not certain, but I do know the affidavit was a sticking point.
Okay. And how did you learn that?
Dr. Messersmith told me.
So at least in part, Dr. Messersmith told you that Mr. Little wasn't working for her because of what he said in connection with this case. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I want to absolutely say that's correct, because I actually thought that Mr. Little had already ceased working for her prior to the affidavit.
Has Ms. Railsback been back to your property anytime in the last couple of years?
She has.
And do you recall having a discussion about anything involved in this case with her?
No, I've steered clear of discussing this with anyone.
One moment. Rona, could I just have 1 minute to speak with Attorney Riley and I'll finish up?
Sure, can you take the exhibit down? Or the chalk? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just a couple more questions.
Mhm.
Ms. Hannafin, if the easement is utilized by the owners of 8, 11, and 14, lots of 8, 11, and 14, you would view that as intrusive of.
I think he froze.
He froze. Yeah. So close. All right. All right, I will make you sit there uncomfortably. I'm gonna I'm going to stop my video. Someone wants to get in touch with them and see if this is temporary or permanent.
Honorable Foster, are you there?
I am.
Bob completely lost power right now, and I think Miss Hannafin might as well. And I know that our lights are flickering bad again.
Okay. All right, whoever's
So
here, come back.
that's
on.
where we stand.
All right.
Okay. He's I think he said he lost total power, so I'm not sure what that means, but he
Right.
wanted me to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Pasquale. All right, let's get back on the record with whoever's here.
I am on the phone right now with, wait a minute, let me put my recording on here. I'm on the phone with Attorney Galvin, and he said they have lost their power. It keeps going out, and then the internet goes out also, and he wants to know what you would like to do.
We're going to suspend.
We're gonna suspend.
I
Okay.
apologize to Miss Hannafin because, of course, she was hoping she was almost done, but I don't think how we can finish.
Right.
Why don't you, Attorney DeLuna, Attorney Galvin, Attorney Riley, confer? We have
So you're saying to confirm
scheduled another full
about
day
rescheduling for Ms. Hannafin.
for February 11th. But
February
if you
11th is
find,
scheduled.
if you talk to Ms. Hannafin, I'm happy to take an hour just to finish her, and maybe Mr. Summers as well, or half a day and another day, whatever you think is going to work, or we could try to do it all on the 11th.
Your Honor, if may I request, and I'll parrot this with Mr. Galvin. If by any chance a trial is canceled for the COVID purposes or anything of that sort, could we possibly have an earlier date? With appropriate notice, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't do it next week. I'm the ex parte judge at the land court. The following week, I have a series of events, so I can do a partial day on January 25th, like 9:30 to 1.
Can we, I'll confer with Attorney Galvin if that's possible.
Sure, absolutely.
January 25th, you said?
Attorney Galvin is not available that day.
All right.
Okay,
So you know what?
we'll leave that space.
Why don't we arrange to talk on January 19th,
Arranged to talk on January 19th with the
10
judge
o'clock?
at 10 o'clock. Yes. Is that a status conference?
It
Attorney
is, it
Galvin
is.
would like to know. Yes,
It's
it
a
is.
status conference, so you can confer with each other and your witnesses.
Sure.
and
He's
see
just
what we can
gonna,
do.
he said if you could hold 1 minute so he can just
Sure.
look at the date.
Ms. Hannafin, I'm sorry, Attorney Galvin's just lost his power. We're just gonna have to suspend today.
I understand. I almost lost mine. It just blipped out. So the wind is crazy.
Okay. So,
Your Honor, I have a DEP hearing on the 19th.
all right. Well, Ms. Hannafin, you don't have to wait. You can sign off.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So I mean, I can do it other days that week. I was just trying to keep it to that. So I don't know, the 18th, the 20th, the 20th.
The 19th, Attorney DeLuna cannot make the 19th. He has a DEP hearing. He could have made the night. Oh, here's Attorney Riley.
Hey, can you hear me?
He's
Yeah.
back. Yes.
Hi, yeah, I'm outside on my phone.
Okay. Attorney Galvin's going to try to log back in.
With his phone or?
I'm
No.
I'm on my phone because the internet went down again in our
Oh,
office.
the internet went down. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the parking lot now.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry about this.
How about Tuesday? Should we get together on Tuesday?
I have doctor's appointments for my wife from noon to 3.
Well, I can do it in the morning on Tuesday.
Tuesday morning is fine.
Okay, like at 9:30. So we just figure out what we're doing because this is impossible to work something out like this. All right, so because of technical issues and power outages, we're forced to suspend before we could finish Ms. Hannafin's testimony. So we're going to suspend the trial. We'll have a status conference on January 18th at 9:30 just to discuss scheduling to complete the trial. Okay?
Thank
Okay.
you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you, Your
weekend.
Honor.
Thank you. Oh. All right, I'm signing. I'm signing.